Gotta get going. Okay, so we left
the yard site that we're supposed to remember. Rabbi Hertzberg. Aaron said
oh,
yesterday.
that's right. I thank you. That's what's Reb Chanina ben
Reb Chanina Getzel.
Reb Chanina Getzel, Rabbi. How can I forget that? Ben, what's his last father's name already? We don't see
Ben Moshe.
Moshe something, no?
Yuri posted tonight, Chanina Getzel Ben Moshe. So
that's it? Okay.
That's what he posted.
Yeah, you're right. Chanina Getzel Ben Moshe. Okay. The neshama should have an aliyah.
Oh, no.
Okay. So thank you, Naftali, for that reminder. So we're on the bottom.
I met Yitzi by Marev.
Okay. Chafam Beis. So he said, Pyrus, right? That's where we left off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pirates lasses leidera. So we said that the king can just knock down fences, houses, whatever he needs. He can knock it down to make a travel, right? So Tana Rabbanan, Aitzres Melachim Lamelech. The Aitzres of Melachim goes to the king. Ushar Biza. What you want to say? You can say it. Yeah. All right. Ushar Biza Shabaizim Mechzel Lamelech Mechzel Am. And the rest of the Biza, the how do you call it?
Spoils.
The loot. What?
Spoils,
yeah. So Sharbiz Shabaizim Mechzel Lamelech Mechzel Am. Half goes to the king and half goes to the right? So I'm right. So again, the king is making out like a bandit. Right? He's getting the king. He gets what belongs to the kings, and and he's also getting half of the spoils. So it's good. The itis of the malachim goes to the king. Archa de Milsa. That's meaning the king should get the king stuff. Ella shar biza shabayz and mechzel melach mechzel army not long, but the rest of the biza, right? That the boys in mechzel melach mechzel army not long. Where do you know that he gets half? What's the source that the king gets half? So the chsev on Tamar Aleph now, the yimshechu lashem lenogiru letzadok, and they anointed this Thomas Shlomo Melech, and they made him as the king, which Lashem to Hashem. The Nogid as a Nogid is he's a, how do you say it? A king to Hashem or a prince to Hashem, something like that. Uletzadok, and Tzadok was a Kohen, Tzadok a Kohen. So Makish Nogid Letzadok. We're going to make a hekesh, a comparison between the Nogid and to Tzadok, who was the Kohen. Mat Tzadok Mechzaloy Mechzalachiv. Tzadok, who was the Kohen Gadol, half went to him. All the karbanos, half goes to the Kohen Gadol, and half goes to the other Kohanim. After Nogid, so too a king, Mechzaloy Mechzalachiv, half goes to him and half goes to the brothers. Fine. But Tzadok Gufemi Nolan. And Tzadok himself, how do we know? Meaning, how do you know the Kohen Gadol gets half? The Tanya, Rebbe Yomer, Faisal Aaron Labanov, but it was to Aaron and his kids. Mechzel Aaron or Mechzel Labanov. Half to Aaron, so half to this kids. So the Kohen Gadol gets half of all karbanos. So Mamela, we have a hekesh, and that the king gets half of all the spoils. Okay, fine. Now we have a pretty wild daf coming up. First, towards the bottom of this amud. So let's see. Lo yarba lo nashim, ela shmoina esrei. He's not allowed to have a lot of wives. He can only have 18 wives. All right, which is interesting. Lashon, only 18 wives. All right, no more than that. All right, Rabbi Yehuda Aimer mar behuloi. He could have more wives. Ubevachloi mesiris as liboy, as long as, now I don't know how he knows that this won't happen, because we saw from Shlomo Melech that it happened, right? But ubevachloi mesiris as liboy, as long as they don't turn his heart away, right? Which we're going to see in the Gemara. But meaning, how is he supposed to know whether his wife is going to be bad for him or not? I mean, that's why we date officially, right? To find out if the wife is going to be bad for us. So Rabbi Yehuda is saying that if he knows that the wives are not going to be bad for him and they're not going to turn him off from Yiddishkeit, so then you could have him. Okay, how's he supposed to know? I'm not sure. Another thing I don't
What's the
understand.
big deal? Could always divorce her. What's the big deal?
But she might convince him in the interim.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Right? I'm saying, how is he supposed to know the answer? I mean, Shlomo Melech, the smartest and wealthiest man in the world, thought he wasn't going to be convinced, and he got convinced. Right? So, fine. But okay, so I don't know when Reb Shimon also, even one wife is, and that wife is going to turn you off from Yiddishkeit, then you shouldn't marry her. Okay, so isn't that
The
pashut?
Rambam says if he wants to go over 18, so he divorces his wife and marries a new one.
That's true. Right. So we'll get to that in the Gemara. Well, the Gemara's, yeah, but we're saying, how is he supposed to know whether this lady is turning on, and who, and any person, we're going to say you cannot get married to a person who's going to make you less of a yid. So, anyways, so I don't understand it. Okay, so but if it's even one wife, then what is he saying that he shouldn't have a lot of wives? So what it means is even a tzadekis like Avigail, still you can only have 18 wives. All right. So it's a whole diyun exactly what, how many shitas do we have in this Mishnah? Do we have 2 shitas, 3 shitas? All right.
Is Rav Shimon L'chayra saying that there's 2 separate lavim?
I don't know if it's a lav. Is it a lav?
It can't be Meisris Liba.
Pretty sure the whole Torah, Maestros Liber is just like you're gonna end up not keeping the Torah. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, but it is said specifically by a melech. The pasuk says it.
Right.
I'm pretty sure nobody should be marrying wives that are Maestros Liber. I don't think it's specific to Melech.
That's true. That's what Siakim just asked. But the pasuk says, "V'layar b'lei nashim, v'layasru levavav." The first two, the Tanakhama is clearly learning that 18 is the number where there's a Sarat slave.
Right.
And Rav Yehuda argues and says it's 2. It's in order not to. So the number is not negaya. It's just not as many as will be Meser Aslibai. And one is just as good as 19.
Right.
Rav Shimon used to say there's 2 separate things, 2 separate lavin.
Yeah, okay, whatever. Let's say, yeah. It's unclear exactly what's going on, but let's see in the Gemara, maybe it'll get a little clearer. So now
The Yad Ramah brings 2 different shitas, whether Yehuda or Shimon are going in shitas Tanakama or it's a 3-way.
Correct. That's right. It's a shiloh whether it's a 3-way machlokes or 2-way machlokes. That's the tumul in the pasuk. Okay, now what is this based on? So the pasuk says, lo yarba loy susim. I'm sorry, I'm reading the pasuk now. But lo yarba loy noshim. Right, you shouldn't have a lot of wives. But lo yoser levavoi. And they shouldn't turn his heart away from Yiddishkeit. And then it says, "V'kesav ezav lo yar b'lo moed." That's the next Mishnah. And he shouldn't have a lot of silver and gold. So the pasuk says the reason why he shouldn't have a lot of wives, right? It says lo yar b'lo noshim, so that they v'lo yaser levaveh, that they shouldn't turn his heart away from Yiddishkeit. So the pasuk actually gave a reason, which we'll see on Amud Beis. What's going on with that? So then Gemara says, "Lameimer the Rabbi Yehuda darish time in the krov, Rabbi Shimon loy darish time in the krov." Do we mean to say that Rabbi Yehuda darshans the reason for the pasuk? Because Rabbi Yehuda says that because the pasuk says you're not allowed to have more than 18 wives. It doesn't say the number, but it says you're not allowed to have a lot of wives. The king is not allowed to have a lot of wives, and that they shouldn't turn him away from Yiddishkeit. So Rabbi Yehuda seems to be saying, but if he knows for sure they're not going to turn him away from Yiddishkeit, he gets a seminary girl, he gets 100 seminary girls and he marries them, they're certainly not going to turn him away from Yiddishkeit, at least not purposely, right? So then he's allowed to have. So that means Rabbi Yehuda is going with the reason of the pasuk. And Rabbi Shimon, who says, Rabbi Shimon would say the opposite. He's not going with the reason of the pasuk. So the Gemara says that can't be because we heard that they go, each one of these shitas, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon actually have the opposite, the Tanya Almana. So there's such a thing, and it's interesting. We just did it in Shari Tshuva. When you lend somebody money, so you can take a mashkin from them, but let's say it's a clothing. So during the night, when they don't need their clothing, so you can come take the clothing from them, and then you bring it back to them during the day. So the question is, do you do that for almana too? Because it looks a little suspicious when you keep showing up at the almana's door every night and every morning, right? So the Gemara says, almana benchi aniya benchi ashira, and almana, whether she's wealthy or whether she's poor, or whether she's wealthy, ain't mashkanasa. We don't take mashkan from her. So this rachamim, this is like you from yesterday. You see that there's equal to lend a wealthy or a poor. Seems to be equal. So ain't mashkanasa. We don't take a mashkan from her. Shenemar le'sachbal beged almana. You should not take sachbal, means you shouldn't take as a, what do you call it? As a mashkin, the beged of almana. Tivir Reb Yehuda, Reb Shimon Omer, ashira mashkin. If she's wealthy, you can take a mashkin from her. Aniya ain't a mashkin. But if she's poor, you can't. Va'ata chayiv lahachzela, and you have to give it back to her. Va'ata masiya shem rabish shkunaseh, and you're going to give her a bad name because everybody's going to think she's a zayna, right? Ba'amrina Maika Amar, we say, what exactly was Reb Shimon saying? And you have to give it back to her, and you're going to give her a bad reputation. Since you are taking a mashkin from an almana, you have to give it back to her. And because you have to bring it back, so every day you're going back and forth twice a day to an almana's house. So you're going to give her a bad name that she is being mezaneh. It's not really znus because she's not married, but it's going to give her a bad name. All right? So what does that have to do with the difference between poor and wealthy? Because by a poor, that's the one you have to bring it back to. But a wealthy one, you don't have to, because she doesn't need it. She has we're assuming that she has other clothing. Right? So that's why Reb Shimon says you cannot take a mashkin from a poor woman, because she's going to look like she's not behaving properly. So Reb Shimon seems to be going with the reason. Amar Rabbi Yehuda loy darish time of the kra. Rabbi Yehuda, who just says that you don't take a mashkin, he's not going with the time of the kra. Right? But Reb Shimon darish time of the kra. But Reb Shimon is darshaning the reason of the pasuk. Right? And that's why he's saying that it's going to be dependent. Now, we already said Shimon a few blot ago, Darshan's time of the kra, right? But you see here that Reb Shimon darshans the reason for the pasuk, and therefore he adjusts the halacha to differentiate between a woman that's wealthy and a woman who's poor. And you have Reb Yehuda who doesn't darshan. Yet here in our Mishnah we say that Reb Shimon is darshaning the reason for the reason that the king cannot marry more than 18 wives, and Rabbi Yehuda seems to darshan. So how are we going to do that? So Ba'alma, the Gemara answers first of the middle wide lines, right? Ba'alma Rabbi Yehuda loy darish time of the kra. Really, Rabbi Yehuda doesn't darshan the reason for the pasuk. Pashani Hachan here is different. The mefarish time of the kra here, because the Torah itself says what the pshat is. Right? Like we just said in the pasuk, meaning normally time of the kra is us saying pshat in the pasuk, right? We're explaining what the pshat in the pasuk is, but here the pasuk itself explains itself, right? The time of the kra, matam lo yarba lo noshim. The pasuk itself says, why shouldn't he have a lot of wives? Mishum de lo yaseh levavai, so it shouldn't turn his heart away, right? So. Meaning Rabbi Yehuda normally doesn't darshan time of the kra, but here the pasuk itself tells you the reason, so you can't ignore that. Reb Shimon Amalach, okay, what about Reb Shimon? How come he's not darshaning it? Michti, he says, let's see, Ba'alma darshina time of the kra. Really, even if the Torah does not explain its reason, which is most of the time, we still darshan with the reason for the pasuk, and that will change the din. If that's the case, we don't need the pasuk to explain to us why he shouldn't have a lot of wives. What's pashut, the reason why a king should not have a lot of wives is because they may turn him off from Yiddishkeit. And then because I would say, what's the reason you shouldn't have a lot? Because we don't want the women turning him away from Yiddishkeit. So then why does the Torah need to tell us? Meaning we could have figured it out all on our own, that he shouldn't have multiple wives because one of them is bound to get him away from Yiddishkeit. So then why did the Torah choose to say it here? So the Gemara says, Afilu achas umasiras libay So that what it means is that even one wife, if she is going to turn his heart away from Yiddishkeit, he shouldn't marry her. So if it's even one, so we're saying that he shouldn't even marry one lady. So then what are we saying with lo yarva? Tafilu ka'Avigail. That means even if she's as good as Abigail, you still can't marry more than 18. Right? So it's okay. So basically, the Gemara is saying that this is different. Meaning, normally Reb Shimon darshans time of the crow, and normally Rabbi Yehuda does not darshan time of the crow. But the reason why Rabbi Yehuda does it here is because the pasuk itself darshans the reason, so Rabbi Yehuda goes with it. And Reb Shimon saying the opposite. Reb Shimon saying the pasuk didn't need to darshan. The pasuk didn't need to tell us the reason. We could have figured that out on his own. The pasuk told it to us. So therefore, we're going to use it for something else, which is to tell you that don't even marry one wife who is going to turn you off. Now, I can't understand. I mean, Rabbi Yehuda L'char would say the same thing. How can the king go marry even one wife who might turn him away from Yiddishkeit? Okay, I'm not sure. Now we start with major history again over what happened with David HaMelech. So Hani Shmoina Esrei Minolan. Where do we get that it's 18? Tichsiv Vayivoldu LeDavid Bonim BeChevron, and David had children in Hebron. Vayihi Bechorei Amnon Lachinoyim HaYisraeli. His Bechor was Amnon, who was born Lachinoyim HaYisraelis, Achinoyim for Israelis. Umeshneu, and the second was Kilov Lavigail, Ashes Novel, who was the wife of Novel, HaKarmeli from Carmeli, meaning that's the whole story with Abigail. That was her second marriage to David. Vashlishi is Avshalom ben Malcha. The third was Avshalom. Haravi Adoniya ben Chagis, which we'll see on Amud Beis. Vachamishi Shafatya ben Avital. Vashishi Yisram leEgla Ashes David. So Yisram to Egla. So those are 6 kids with their mothers that were born. So there's 6 wives, and each one had 1 child for David HaMelech. Eila, so Yuldu LeDavid BeChevron, that's who David had, because David's kingdom started in Hebron. We said that yesterday. He was in Hebron for the first 5 years. So those are the 6 wives and the 6 kids that he had. The Ka'amrle Navi, and then the Navi says, meaning Nasan Navi, tells David, Ima'at v'isifalach kahena v'kahena. Meaning, if this is not enough for you, meaning if this is, this was Nasan Navi giving Musar to David HaMelech, right? Going through all the shvach that he did. And he said to him that if this is not enough for you, I'm going to add on kahena v'kahena, like this and like this. So kahena is shis, 6, another meaning he has 6 wives. So the Nasan Navi said we'll add on kahena v'kahena. So kahena is another 6, or kahena shis, and that's another 6. Tavalu timni 3, so that's 18 because he had his 6 wives. Add on another 6, and then another kahena is another 6. 6 times 3 is 18. Right? Fine. So, but the question is that he took Bathsheba, which is a different story. Fine. So then Maskala Ravina, who says you should darshan kahena v'kahena like that? Again, we're darshaning kahena v'kahena means you have 6 already. We're going to give you another 6 and then another 6. Maybe you should darshan ema kahena is tartisri, right? That meaning he had 6. We'll give you another 6, and then kahena is going on the combination of the first 2. So that's 12. And add another 12 to that. So that's 24. Right? I hope that's understandable. I mean, it's pretty simple. The first kahena says, okay, you have 6 wives. We're going to give you another 6. That's kahena. Then now you have 12 wives. So we're going to do another kahena, which means that we're going to add 12. So now you have 24. Meaning, who says kahena is going on the original 6? Maybe the third kahena, well, actually the second kahena is doubling what was there from the first kahena. Right? So Gemara says, "Enachanami, Tanya nami hachi." Yes, we learned a brisa like that. Lo yarba lo nashim yoisem me esrim v'arba. So we have a brisa that Taka held that David had 24 wives. So Gemara asks, okay, Lamanda Dorish Vav, right? So the one that darshans Vav, so it says Kahena, Vi Kahena. So then that Vav adds more. So then it should be Arbarim Vishmaina Hava. According to this sheet, it should be 48. Because right now he has 24 wives. And we have Vi Kahena should give you 48. Yes, we have a brisa that says that too. So we have three opinions. Bottom line is we have three opinions. We have that David HaMelech had 18 wives, or 24, or 48. Okay. The Tana done my timer. So how come our Tana stops at 18? So Rav Kahana, Makish, Kahena, that there you go, Gershon. Rav Kahana saying, Makish Kahena, Basel Kahena Kamo. You make a hekish between the Kahena, the second Kahena to the first Kahena. Ma Kahena Kamo Shis. Just like the first Kahena means 6 wives, Af Kahena Basra Shis. So to the second one also means 6. Okay, so that's the source for our Mishnah holds 18, and there's other shittas. Fine. For having Michal. What happened to Michal? That was yesterday, 2 days ago's daf. What about Michal? She was one of David's wives. Amar Rav, so Rav said, Egla zu Michal. One of the names that we said before was Egla. That was Michal. Okay, so the Melama Lekashma Egla. Why is she called Egla? Shechaviva love ke Egla. Go figure this one out. Rachamim, this one maybe you could understand. I don't know about anybody else. His wife was loved to him as much as a cow. Right? Whatever that means. I think there's a Gemara somewhere else that talks about the chavivus of a wife is like as a cow. Yeah, I think it's in Shabbos.
I think it goes the other way. The goats are more chaviv to her than I am.
I hear. Anyways, yeah.
In Shabbos, we had by Melava Malka, Egla Tilsa is the most chashuv of all the meats.
What?
We had by Melava Malka in Shabbos that Egla Tilsa is the most chashuv of all the meats.
Right. So what are you saying?
That's chavalaka Egla. It's so chashuv. It's the chashivas.
I hear. You're saying, all right, maybe, yeah, but okay. You mean the third wife?
No, and Egla Tilsa was not the third calf. It was a calf that's the third grown.
No, it's not. That's not to machlokes.
That's, yeah,
My
okay.
focus in getting was a 3-year-old or a third calf from its mother.
No, it was either a third of a year or the third calf.
Anyways,
A
okay.
3-year-old's not a calf anymore.
Yeah, but anyway, so that was saying the chashivas of the what was he saying? So Egla, that's why he called her Egla, because that was a chashivas. Lule charashtem be'eglasi. You would have not have plowed with my eglasi, with my that's Shimshon by the plishtim, right? And shayftim. So Shimshon asked a riddle to the plishtim. I forgot what he made some sort of bet, and somehow they got to Shimshon's wife, and she told him the answer. So that's what his answer back was, that had you not plowed with my calf. So that's he was referring to his wife. Okay, now they ask a different question. Michal b'nei. Did Michal have kids? Because before the Gemara a few lines above said she had kids. She did not have a baby until she died. Right? Now the reason why she didn't have it, okay, we'll get to it. That's going to be a few lines. Right? So she never had kids. Amar of Chista, because she was punished for something she did to David. Amar of Chista, ad yoim maisa loy b'yoim maisa hayala. By the day that she died, she had a baby. She died, meaning she died in childbirth. So she did have a kid. So Gemara says, Michdi, banim hecha kachashav lehu. right? So how can you say that? Where does it count? Where does it count David's kids? Bechevron. It counted in Hebron. That's what we said before. When it listed those 6 wives with the kids, it was in Hebron. The Michal, Yerushalayim, and the story with Michal was in Yerushalayim, which was much later. So it seems like she did have a kid in Hebron, and because the whole story that she got punished for happened in Yerushalayim. Michal Bashal looked out the window, and V'teres HaMelech David mefazes u'mekarkel lifnei Hashem the Vativas, and she embarrassed him. Meaning, David HaMelech, when he decided he's just going to dance, he did a wild dancing, I don't know, wild, whatever, a lot of dancing and jumping around in front of the Aron. So she said to herself, "What is he doing?" Right? She scorned him for doing something like that in front. But so therefore, from Yehuda, she took her what was coming to her because she never had kids because of this. So you see, but this happened in Yerushalayim. So you see, the punishment happened later. So that can't be the pshat. As a Ella Ema ad oise Maisa Hoyala, till that Maisa in Yerushalayim she had kids. But from there on, she didn't have any more kids. So she did have a kid before, but not afterwards. Oh, but now that's it. So now we said David had 18 wives, but then now the Gemara says, but Yikach David oid pilagshim and nashim Yerushalayim. David took more wives and pilagshim. How do you call pilagshim? A concubine. So the Gemara says, Lamilo Shmaina Asa. That wasn't in addition to 18. That was included in the 18. Meaning the pilagshim were part of the 18. Okay, my nashim or my pilagshim. What does it mean, wives, and what does it mean, concubines? Some of you nashim b'ksuba b'kedusha. Women, a wife is with a ksuba and kedushin, the whole 9 yards. Pilagshim beloy ksuba beloy kedushin. A pilagesh is just without the ksuba, without the kedushin. It's just a girlfriend, I guess. I don't know. That's a concubine. Fine.
You see the out of your mind on this difference?
What does he say again?
He says, what do you mean? Kedushin's deraisa. You can't just take a woman off the street.
Right.
He says Kedushin's deraisa for ishus to make her an ishes ish, to be mechayev shirkus and ova, shirkus and oina, and aser her krovim. But if pilagesh, she says only midirabanan it's a problem, but midiraisa, it's okay. Right. She just doesn't have a status of ishes ish, and you're not aser and her relatives, and you don't have to give her mazonis and all those other things. Which is a nice shot, because otherwise it's like funny, like it's just taking these people, like the Torah says you need to do kedushin, so like how does that work?
Right. So I thought, maybe I'm mixing it up with something else.
But the next Yad Ramah on the 400 kids?
Maybe. No, I think I'm mixing it up with a different thing about Pilagshim. Okay, whatever. If I remember good. Not. Anyway, so
many people are not curious that part. They have a different curious in the entire Gemara.
Who?
I
mean, you don't not curious the Pilagshim.
No, they say Pilagshim Bikadushin of like Suba. They don't dash and boy.
Right. Who's curious that again?
I'm not sure. Maybe the Rambam.
Could be. Yeah, sure. There are some Girsa issues. It's interesting that nobody marks off that there was a different Girsa here. Okay, let's see. There were 400. David had 400 kids. Right. This does not mean these were not his kids. Right. It just means that these were the people that were born from his soldiers, and as we'll see, that they're from the Yefas Toyer, right? Yefas Toyer is when a soldier captures a guy a lady who looks good. So there's all sorts of halachas about how they could take them and let them grow their fingernails long, etc., make them ugly, and then if they still want them, they could keep them. So whatever it is. So there were 400 boys born from that. All right. The Kulan B'nai Yefas Toyer, and they're all they were all the daughters of Yefas Torah. Were godly blooders are you, and they grew long hair. The Kul and Yoshim and they all sat in wagons of gold. And they were the head. They were the heads of the soldiers. And they were considered agroif as like the fists. They were the strong people of David, based David. Okay, Vamar of Yehuda Amarav Tamar Bas Yefas Torah. So Tamar, who was David's daughter, was the daughter of Yefas Torah, meaning it was not. Meaning, so I guess this is in addition to his wives. He took Yefas Torah, who Yefas Torah is not Jewish. So Mela Tamar was not really his daughter, as we're going to see from the next story, right? So he was Tamar was the daughter of a guy from Yefas Torah. Shenemar va'ata daberna el hamelech ki lo yimna'eni mimecha, because Tamar told Amnon. Now Amnon was David's son. I don't know if the Olam knows the story with Amnon and Tamar. It's another one of these very interesting stories of Nach that's very difficult to understand. But Amnon was officially half brother to Tamar, different mothers, which the Gemara is saying now. She was the daughter of Yefas Torah. And Amnon, we said, who was his mother? I don't remember.
Achinoyam Israelis.
Amnon Achinoyam Israelis. Yes, thank you. So they were officially half. So Amnon had a big, major crush on Tamar. So the Shiloh is, if they're sisters, he can't marry her. But Tamar told him, no, just go to David HaMelech. I'm telling you, he'll allow you, because since her mother was a guy, so then she's not considered a sibling. Because if you think that she was really a daughter of somebody who David married, did her sister, would David HaMelech been mater Amnon to the sister?
She
was the daughter of
Did we
Yefas Torah.
say when we were learning the Sugi of Yefas Torah, if you could be with her before she's Megayer?
Correct.
So
Yes.
how do the Rishonim that learn up that it's Usher learn up how she became a daughter of David HaMelech? She obviously came from before David HaMelech, before she was Megayer, right? Otherwise,
That's Taisa's question, no?
It's a question, but there are Rishonim. How do the other Rishonim learn with the Sugya?
Yeah, so that's a big tumult. That's a big tumult here. Exactly how you understand it. I don't understand what the tumult is, because all bets are off on everything in Nach. I don't know if Rabban is on.
Are you saying David HaMelech?
that.
That wasn't one of the things that he said David HaMelech did wrong. David HaMelech for sure did the halachas of Yefas Torah with the
I'm saying when these halachas applied to them, when they didn't apply to them.
She was called the Yefas Torah. David HaMelech probably went through the
true.
rules of Yefas Torah.
I'm assuming.
So
yeah.
Whatever the rules of Yefas Torah is.
Yeah, the Yad Ramah says that David had 400 Yefas Torah wives because you could only have beer with her one time. So he had to have 400 wives to have these 400 kids. Or they had twins, he said. But yeah, I mean, he had to keep the halachas.
Didn't we once say that you can use the Pnei in Torah all the way up to Purim?
I don't know. Yeah, did we say that?
Yeah, we said it once. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't remember the source for that. Anyways, okay, so I don't know, but the bottom line is we're saying Yefas Torah. Fine. Ula Amnon, Raya, right? Amnon had a friend. Ushmai Yonadav ben Shima Achi David. He was Yonadav ben Shima. Whether it's Achi David, a brother of David, and he was V'haya Ish Chacham, and he was a smart man. So what does this mean? Amr Yudam Arav Ish Chacham L'Risha. He was a wise man, and he used his wiseness. No, that's not a word. He used his wisdom. There you go. Thank you. He used his wisdom for bad things. Because what happened? Vayomar, and Vayomar he said, "Madua tekacha dal ben hamelech." Said, "Why are you so low? Meaning, why are you down and out?" Because Amnon had this major crush on Tamar, and he couldn't get her. So then and prepare the food. Meaning he basically gave Amnon a plan. He said, make like you're sick, right? And then David HaMelech is going to come visit you, and you're going to say, I need Tamar to make me some food, which we're going to see in a minute. And then Tamar will just do the story just to make sure we're on the same page with it. And then when Tamar comes to bring the food, there'll be nobody there, and he will sleep with her. So that was the Eitzah of what was his name? Yonadav ben Shimon. So that was the Eitzah, and that's exactly what happened. Fine. Vatikach es hamasreis vatitzak lefono. So Tamar went, and she took the pan, the fried, and she vatitzak lefono, she poured it in front of him. Fine. She made some sort of fried food for him. Then, after he violated her, after he was ma'anis her, Amnon had this crazy hatred for Tamar. He went wild and he hated her. Right? He hated her with a major, major hatred. My time. Why? So we get an interesting Gemara. So a hair from one of her hairs on her body, by the Isamakum, tied itself around his aver and made him and cut him, right? Because it wrapped around his aver, and when he finished being ma'anis her, so he got his punishment, and it made him into a krus shavcha, and a krus shavcha cannot be part of Klal Yisrael. Besides that, it made him, made him have difficulties there. So the Gemara says that's why he hated her. Did she do it? What did she do? Well, she didn't do it. It happened by itself, which I don't understand that kasha, because anybody's going to blame the person, even if the person didn't do it. But that's clearly the Gemara's what? Yeah. So the Gemara is clearly asking, not like what I'm saying, but that he wouldn't blame her for that. She did it. She took one of her hairs and tied it around him to that it should happen to him. So he got mad at her. Right? Fine. Then I'm going to ask, it's not true.
Is this the Makar for the Ben Ish Chai?
Or what?
Is this the Makar for the Ben Ish Chai?
What Ben Ish Chai?
Before mikveh, a woman's chayiv to shave?
Oh, I mean, no, I don't know, because the next Gemara's kasha is shver. So what says, it's not true. I
mean, really, Gershon? That because they're being ma'anis them, so they have to shave in the mikveh so that they don't go and
No, because of that havamina of the Gemara, the Niksha on it. There was such a havamina. The only problem was that why would that cause hatred? But Niksha is a real issue, according to this Gemara.
Yeah. Okay, but that's why either way the Gemara has a different kasha. So it's not true. But Darash Rabba, and this is also very schwer to understand. My desiva yetze lo shame. Shame by going and it's going to go out from you. Your name went out with your beauty amongst the goyim. You consider beauty. Jewish women before the Churban did not have any body hair that they had to get rid of, right? So, and that made them more beautiful. So then, and this is obviously the story with Tamar is way before the Churban. So why did she have hair? Meaning the women only started growing hair after the Churban, the Jewish women, which the men get punished because they got to pay for the whole hair removal service, right?
But there wasn't by Megillah. Didn't Esther have to take a bath and what's it called to get rid of all the hair?
Yeah, so that's after the Churban.
Which one?
Oh, you mean this is first? I don't. Where's this pasuk? This pasuk is Yecheskel. I hate part of my ignorance. Yecheskel was the first or the second?
Whatever you say, I'm going to agree, so it don't matter.
Yecheskel was the end after Bais Rishon.
Right? Yeah, you're right. Yeah. No, I thought Yecheskel is Yeshaya, or is it both?
No,
all the Nevi'im were before the Bais Sheni.
Yecheskel's later. Yeshaya's earlier. Yeshaya was related to Achizkiyo.
One second. What's what Rashi say? Rashi says. Rashi brings a pasuk Yeshaya Gimel, so it's the first base on Mikdash. Yeah, very good, Peretz. It makes sense. Anyways, so the Gemara gives a pasha the answer, right? Shani Tamar, the Basifas Tayar Hava. Tamar was a guy. So that's why she had hair. Right? Okay, fine. Then the Gemara says, "Vatikach Tamar Efer Arosha." So Tamar.
The Ben Ishchai has a cheshbon in this Gemara that answers your question, Yaakov, about what the Gemara's question is.
Is it Ben Ishchai? Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
So maybe he throws in what Gershon was saying. Anyways, okay.
No, he doesn't throw in Gershon. It's different.
Okay, very good.
Yeah. He's whatever. Your question about what did he do? What do you mean? Why is he blaming her? What do you mean? Of course, you blame that person that does it. Yeah, I'll tell you.
All right, thank you. So send me a picture. Vatikach Tamar Efer, please. Vatikach Tamar Efer al Rosha. So Tamar took ashes and put it on her head. And Besaksainus Apasim Asher Alev. So we just had Ksainus Apasim Asher Alev Kara. She tore it. All right. So she also had a Ksainus Pasim, meaning she was very sad. So Tanam Shmei Rabbi Shua ben Karcha Geder Gadol Gadra Tamar Ba'isa Shah. What she did, she built a big wall. Right? She raised wall by doing this. Meaning she called attention to herself. And she said, Amru, Libanois Malachim Kach. If this is what can happen to the daughter of a king, Libanois said Yotis Alachas Kama Kama. To a Libanois said Yotis, for sure something like that could happen. Im Letznuas Kach, if somebody who's a Tznuah, Tamar was a Tznuah, the Prutzas Alachas Kama Kama. Right? Meaning, basically she was, I hate to say it, but you have all these women that, what do you call the Me Too? Not Me Too. Is it Me Too? What was that movement? That men abusing women? Me Too. It's Me Too. Yeah. There you go. Okay, so the Me Too. I don't know. How did I know that? Anyway, so she was the leader of it, right? She was. You see that there's a makar to publicize. You better see. The problem is the Me Too movement. I don't think tells women to be tznuah. They tell them don't be tznuah and don't let them come after you. Right, but she's telling everybody, no, be careful. If it happened to me, it could happen to anybody.
She took after her namesake.
What, Tamar? Very good. Very good. Good. Samar Yudah Marab. Shah at that time, Gazru Antom Beis finally. Yeah, Gazru ala Yichud vala Pnuya. They were geyser on Yichud with a Pnuya. Right now, they were geyser on. So right now the Gemara is thinking that they made a gezer that you're not allowed to be alone with a woman, and you're not allowed to be alone even with a single woman, right? Which the obvious question is, what do you mean? Yichud is in a daraisa. It can't be they made it up by David HaMelech by the story. Yichud daraisa who? Where do you have a remes to Yichud in the Torah? When your brother, the son of your mother, is going to be maces you, turn you towards Avodah Zarah. Ben ein maces, ben av ein a maces. The son of a mother, that can convince you to do Avodah Zarah. The son of a father is not. Ben what it's telling you is that a son can be miyachid with his mother. And nobody else is allowed to have yichud with any of the rayas in the Torah. So whatever it is, that's the makar that there's yichud is also in Torah. So how could you say it here? So Gemara answers, they made a gzeira on yichud with a single girl, right? Even a single girl, they made a takana because midairaisa, there's really with a single girl it's not a rayas. I mean, you're not getting the Tzaddik of the Year award if you sleep with a single girl, but a single girl is not a rayas. So they never made that Isser Yichud.
So did they aser Pilagish? Because if we're saying Pilagish is not really anything, so is that like an Isser Pilagish at that point?
Yeah. I have L'chaira. I don't know. I don't know the history of it. Right? But there's an important point here. When we say Pnuya, that's because back then the girls went to mikvah. Nowadays, this doesn't apply. And people make that mistake. Like they think, okay, yichud with a single girl is a derabbanan. Not nowadays. Nowadays, they're nidas. So Mamela, it's yichud daraisa with them. Meaning, because sometimes when you need a kula, let's say you want to use the door open or, whatever it is. So if it's with a guy is for sure derabbanan. Right? And a single girl here is also derabbanan, but not our single girls. because our single girls are nidas, right? Unless they go to the mikvah. Okay. Then the Gemara continues. V'Adoniya ben Chagis misnase leimar ani emlech. So Adoniya ben Chagis, that was one of David's sons, born in Hebron. So he wanted to take over the kingdom. So he said, "I'm going to be the king." He tried on the crown, and it didn't fit. So Rashi says that anybody from the Bnei David had some sort of genetic thing where they had like a hole, not a hole or a space. I don't know. Their head went in a little bit, and the crown would fit perfectly into that, I guess, indentation. So if it fit, then maybe that was a simon that you were right to be the king. So he tried it on.
A Lachen cup.
Very good, very good. So he tried on the crown and it didn't fit him. So it was clear that he was not going to be the guy. Now halavai nowadays with all the machlokes that they would have something like that, right? Okay. Then it says vayasle rechav parashim v'chamishim ish ratzim lefanav. Then it says that he had chariots and horsemen, 50 men going in front of him. My rebusa. So what's the chiddush that he had 50 men running in front of him? All right. So Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav, Kulan Betule Tachel, they all had their spleens taken out. V'chakuke kapois reglayim hayu, and the soles of their feet were taken away, meaning the spleen, Rashi says, makes you tired. So these guys needed to have a lot of energy. So they took out the spleens like this, they won't be tired. And because they were running barefoot, so therefore they took off the skin, meaning they made it so rough that they shouldn't feel the skin on their feet, so they'll be able to run very fast. So basically, sounds like some serious abuse of these guys. And that was a big chiddush, that these runners in front of him, he seriously abused them. Right? Fine. Okay. Zok the Mishnah. Now we continue. Lo yarba lo susim elikidei merkavta. You cannot give him many horses, only what he needs for his merkavas to ride on. Because it was of lo yarba lo ma'id, you should not give him a lot of gold and silver. Elikidei litin aspanya. To pay for aspanya means to pay the salaries for all the soldiers. That's as much gold and silver as the king should have. Because of lo sefer Torah l'shmai, and you write a sefer Torah for him. If he goes out to war, he brings the sefer Torah with him. If when he comes back, he brings back the Torah with him. When he sits in din, it's the Torah's with him. Mesav, when he's leaning, literally, Mesav he kenegdai. When he's leaning, it's supposed to be opposite. Leaning meaning when he eats. And it's with him, and he should read it in all his days. Fine. So Tana Rabbanan.
Doesn't he usually have two? Didn't we have that? Did they have two?
Yeah, we're going to get that in a minute. Very good. Very good. Yeah, the Gemara is going to get that in a few lines. Tana Rabbanan.
What does it mean, the Ketav Azov Layarbalai? Is this the Makar for Hishtablis? Isn't that up to the Avishta? Unless it's not that he's wiser, how much money a person will have.
Yeah. I don't know if that's the Makar, but I don't understand. I thought all kings have lots of gold and silver, so this whole thing I didn't understand either.
Shlomo Melech was the wealthiest in the world.
Yeah.
Well, there's no eminent domain, so can they take the gold and silver?
I don't know.
Siaka, but the idea behind having gold and silver is more for the Malucha, meaning it's what you represent.
Right. Yeah.
Meaning they represented something, so they needed to have gold and silver to represent Malucha.
I hear you. I don't know. Al-Akhara means taxes, right? Doesn't it mean that?
Well, it could also mean the gold and silver you plunder when you win a war.
Right.
The Rambam says it means he can't do it for his personal benefit, to leave it in his treasury and to be Balgaiva or to use it.
Right.
He should only use it for his avadim and all that stuff. Because anything he puts away for tzarchei tzibor, it's mitzvah laharboisa.
Right. So that's the next Gemara, really. So
right.
Okay, let's see. So Tanarabana, lo yarba lo susim. You shouldn't have a lot of susim. Yochel afilu k'tei merkav to u'paroshav. So it says the pasuk says don't have a lot of horses. So maybe you would think that he shouldn't. What? Okay, yochel afilu k'tei merkav to u'paroshav. Do you think that maybe even he can't even have it for his riders and his army? Talmud loymar loy. You see, tonight we'd make the diak loy, Gershon. You wanted to make it less, nothing more than do that. It says loy ain't marbe, ava marbe hu kidei rachva or parasha. For him, his personal use don't have a lot of horses, but for the army, you could have. Hamani mekayim susim. So if that's the case, then what's susim, plural? Susim habatlonin. He shouldn't have horses for no reason, right? Meaning that are not doing anything. How do you know that he can't even have one horse and it's doing nothing? That's included and don't have too many. So that's what tells you in order to have many horses. Fine. So if we're saying that he can't even have one horse, so susim lamali, so then again, why do you need to say plural? Even one extra horse he's not allowed to have. So Gemara says, "Laver beloisasal kol sus v'sus." It's telling you that every extra horse that the king has, he's over on the loisaseh. Right? Okay. Then the Gemara says, "Time because of Rahman loy." So that the reason why the Torah writes it because it says loy halav hachi. Had it not written loy, havamina afilu kidei richbay parashav nami loy. That even for his horses and his chariots, whatever his army and his chariots, he would not be able to have a lot of horses. How could that be? You're supposed to have. So Rashi, interesting Rashi. Rashi says, Malchus beloy rechev u'parasha michashiva. You can't have a chashiv of Malchus unless you have lots of horses, which I think is where we get that the fancy rich people have lots of cars. Right? Didn't they show that the guy from Syria had tons of fancy cars? I think cars is the equivalent, right? Anybody real chashiv like that has tons and tons of cars. There seems to be that transportation is a sign of major wealth.
Well, in the old days, we called it horsepower, but
right.
For some of us, we call it kilowatts now.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. So anyway, so I can't be that he had a chashivas of without horses. So when it says, Loitricha lafushe, it's talking about where to have extra horses, right? Meaning he's allowed to have extra horses for the army. That's fine. He's only not allowed to have extra horses for his own personal use. Okay, and then where it says a similar shakalvatari on the money. Because it was of he should only have enough gold and silver to pay the army. Because it was of if you look at Elite in Aspania, so we think, okay, it says don't have a lot of gold and silver. You shouldn't even have a lot to pay your army. But he's marbe him in order to he should be able to have enough gold and silver to give it to his army. Okay, because of Rahman Allah. So that's the reason why he's allowed to have it, or he's not allowed to have it, is because it says to him, halav hachi havamina afilu k'dei Aspanya nami loy. That we say that if it didn't say loy, so then we would think that you're not allowed to have enough gold and silver for a king to not even pay his army. Because it says loy tzricha larvacha. It's talking about for extra money, meaning for extra money, he's allowed to have extra money in order to pay his soldiers if they need to be overtime or something like that. But for his own personal use, he can't. So Gemara says, "Hashta amrit loy l'drasha." Now that we said loy is for a drasha, loy yarbe loy nashim, my drashtabe. So what about loy yarbe loy nashim? What are you going to darshan? Lemute hedyotis. That's coming to exclude hedyotis, which means that a hedyot, all of us are allowed to have as many wives as we want. Only the king can't have more than 18 wives. All of us regular common folk are allowed to.
We go with this far. Does that mean it's an admirable trait for a hedyot the pursuit of Kesef Azav?
It sounds like it. Sounds like it, but I don't know. And we trust the regular person with it.
Yeah.
Okay, Rabbi Yehuda Rami Ksiv. Rabbi Yehuda asked the stira. I'm sorry, Rami asked Ksiv. It says Vahila Shloima Arbaim Elef. Listen to this. Shloima had 40,000 Arvus Susim Lemerkavta. So an Arvus is a stall, right? Meaning he had 40,000 stall, meaning a row of stalls for his horses. Uksiv Vahila Shloima Arbas Alafim Arvus Susim. And he had 4,000 lines of stalls of horses, right? So that's 40,000 times 4,000. Is that how it goes?
Divided by 4,000.
What?
No?
What do you say? I didn't hear what you said.
Oh.
Is it 40,000 times 4,000? Well, no. One says 40,000, one says 4,000. That's the problem. Right? Okay, tzad imar boim elef it's tablis hayu. If he had 40,000, it's tablis. It's interesting. The art scroll teaches it's tablis as stables. I guess it comes from that word.
Same word.
Yeah. The same word, right? So kol echad vechad hayu by dalid alafim arvasusim, meaning he had 40,000, and each one of them had 4,000. Vim dalid alfam it's tablis hayu, and if there were 4,000 stables, kol echad vechad hayu by arbaim elef arvasusim, then each one of them had 40,000. Basically, he had a lot of horses. All right, fine. Rabbi Yitzchak Rami, Rabbi Yitzchak had a stira ksiv ein kesef nechshav b'mei Shlomo l'meuma. During the days of Shlomo, kesef was worth nothing. Uksiv vayitein Shlomo as a kesef Yerushalayim ka'avonim. Then it says that Shlomo gave kesef in Yerushalayim like stones, meaning in the beginning he said kesef was worthless, which means that there was so much money, there was deflation, and this was it deflation? Deflation. Whatever it is, it was so common that it was nothing, like a penny nowadays. But then they had the worth of stones, which means it went up a little bit. So like Kasha, kan kodim shenasa Shlomo es bas paroi, kan la'achar shenasa Shlomo es bas paroi. One is talking about where Shlomo married, before Shlomo married bas paroi, so then money was nothing, silver was nothing. After he married bas paroi, it went up a little bit. Very fascinating marsha here. So marsha says that the pshat is that before he got married to Bas Paroi, he was just into learning and into chachma. So money was meaningless for him. Once he married Bas Paroi, then he started getting into money. So then the money became worth epis to him, which would, like we saw yesterday, was the beginning of the downfall. That's a mashos pshat in this Gemara. Fine. Bas Paroi. When Shlomo married Bas Paroi, Yor Gavriel v'Noatz Kana b'Yam. Gavriel came and he stuck a reed into the water, v'hela sirton, and that reed, all the junk started piling onto that reed. You know, like all the stuff that floats around the ocean started, attaching itself to this reed. V'alav nivne krach gadol shebaraymi, and on that thing became the big country of krach is a city of Rome. Meaning that Rome eventually destroyed Eretz Yisrael. That all happened because Shlomo Melech married Bas Paroi. So Gemara Yevamos goes through the whole story. How could he marry Bas Paroi? She was a Mitzri. You're not allowed to marry a Mitzri, right? Etc. Etc. Fine. So it's very interesting Gemara. How come the Torah doesn't tell us reasons? So Rashi says a couple of examples. The Torah doesn't tell us why shatnez is awesome and why you're not allowed to eat pig. And similarly, so how come the Torah doesn't give us the reason? Because there are two psukim in the Torah that the Torah told us the reason. And the Gadol Hadar, Shlomo Melech, tripped up because the psukim gave reasons. Because it says in the pasuk you shouldn't have a lot of wives. Amar Shlomo, ani arba v'loy aser. Right, because we saw in Amud Aleph, the reason why you're not allowed to have a lot of wives is because they're going to turn you away from Yiddishkeit. So Shlomo says, I'm okay. It's not going to be a problem with me. When he was old, his wives turned him away from Yiddishkeit. So that's one case. Had it not said the reason, Shlomo wouldn't have been so smart. Right? He thought he was smart. He said, it's not negaya to me. Had the Torah not said a reason, he wouldn't know the reason, so he would have to keep it. Now, the reason why you can't have horses, because we're afraid you're going to go back to Mitzrayim, which is an Issa. Right? So since we're afraid he's going to go back to Mitzrayim, so but he says, I'm not going to go back. And it says that he went, a Merkava wagon left Mitzrayim with 600,000 coins. Right? So we see that's why, because of Shlomo, that's why the Torah does not write reasons. And that's why a lot of times, Rabbanim, they say, we're not going to tell you the reason. When we tell you the reason, you're going to start making all sorts of justifications, etc., etc. Right?
But it wasn't with Yaakov. It wasn't the wisdom. It was more the Yitzhahara that, like, once the meaning, if he would have been darshan, if he would darshan time in the Kra, it's because the Torah says that the Yitzhahara gets you. It's the Torah didn't get you. You wouldn't necessarily do that. He would still darshan time in the Kra. He'd still say it's usher because whatever. What do you think he held like Rabbi Yehuda and not Rabbi Shimon?
Right.
No?
I hear. I don't know. I don't know how to read. I don't know how to read into that. Okay, let's do a few more lines, and then because tomorrow's also a long day, we'll have to catch it up at some point. Because of Sefer Torah L'Shmai, Tano b'vachla yisna b'shel avoisa. We learned that the Sefer Torah shouldn't beautify himself with the Sefer Torah of his fathers. Meaning, let's see, what is Amarav? Even if a guy his father leaves him Sefer Torah, mitzvah lichta mishaloi, it's still a mitzvah for him to write his own. And really, this mitzvah belongs to everybody. So, meaning everybody's supposed to write a Sefer Torah. And he writes a Sefer Torah l'shmai. You shouldn't be beautified with Sefer Torah from somebody else, right? Meaning, it sounds like the king should write the Sefer Torah himself. Melech in Hedji lo, it's masha, a king yes and a Hedji not. No, it's like what Peretz was saying, it's for two Torahs. A king needs to have two Sifrei Torah. A regular person only has one. Tanya because of Loyas Mishnah, right? And he writes a double Torah, Mishnah Torah, Kosav L'Shmai. He writes a L'Shmai, Shtei Torahs. Achas she yotzev and chnesses imay, one that goes and comes with him. Achas shemanachas over beis knazov, one that sits in his storage, whatever, in his svarim room, whatever you call it. Achas she yotzev and chnesses imay, the one that goes out with him. So let's go with the parentheses. It's like an amulet, a toilet Israel, and he hangs it on his arm. Because he's on my right arm, and I'm not gonna ever trip up. And he can't go with it to the base of merchants, to the bathroom. Obviously, right. So that's what he has to have, two Sifrei Torah. And he has to, and it sounds like he has to write it himself. Reb Chaim Kanievsky tried to write a sefer himself, but Sefer Torah himself he gave up. It took up too much time. So even writing a Sefer Torah with a shliach is really not kedai. Okay, not kedai. Whatever. It's not the right thing. But yeah, go ahead.
The